Social Media Power Chat and 15 Minutes with Christine and Mia right here on Google+. And I'm continuing this series with Debra Faris. She's an intuitive LinkedIn coach and a people connector, and she is on a mission with her upcoming book called LinkedIn for College Students. And what she's doing is bringing people to this Google+ stage who are innovative and successful people she's connected with on LinkedIn and having them share their stories with us. So today we have JD Gershbein. I said his name right. And he is amazing. I'll just give you some quick background. He has a background in marketing communications, sales, neuroscience, psychology, broadcast journalism, and my favorite part, improvisational comedy, which I think is a fabulous combination. So, Debra, I'm going to turn it over to you. You tell me, and it's such an obvious answer, why you have JD with us today to talk about this book.
Well, thank you, Mia. And by the way, can I say you look absolutely stunning, gorgeous, and you are the light today. If it's raining anywhere in the world, guys, Mia's your sunshine.
Oh, Dad, you got me to blush. We've been making everybody else blush. Thank you,
yes,
darling.
You are absolutely. And I want to thank you again, Mia, because what you're doing, what you're bringing to college students also is absolutely phenomenal. I think you're the cutting edge, and that's why I'm so excited to have you be part of this book with us.
Thank you.
The reason why I brought JD was I wanted to have somebody who really was the heartbeat of LinkedIn. And for me, to share what really can work on LinkedIn is extraordinary. And this is a perfect example. And when they say things happen for a reason, JD came in my life like that, where you and I got introduced by a mutual friend. JD and I did not know each other. We are East Coast and West Coast. Now, for you on the other side of the screen, this would be your east or your left because you're seeing this opposite and vice versa. So East Coast, West Coast, and what I mean by that is he's a very left brain. I married what was called a left brain analytical anal retentive scientist. And I'm making a joke about that because if you know who Dr. John DeMartini is, the polarity in things are really, really critical. And so what people have a tendency of doing is they like to just zone right in to things that are familiar for them. And that's not how we learn and we grow and how we round ourselves out. So when you find people who are different than you, there's a lot to be learned, but that's that trilogy. And that's what JD and I bring, because his left brain science and neuroscience and his ability. So when he does profiles, he doesn't just dot the I's and cross the T's. He brings a whole new life to them, right? And that's why I brought JD. So we met literally when I found his profile. I was like, whoa, 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 who are you, right? And I mean, I fell in love with him. And this is what I tell college students and everybody that I work with, is that when you really see someone's profile and you can feel that aha or that wow or that something, that's your intuitive talking, and you need to reach out and connect to that person, and whatever that is that spoke to you, that's how you reach out to that other person. So that's what I did with JD, and we actually connected a year ago. So when I work with CEOs and CMOs and COOs, so a CFO is a chief financial officer. That's a left brain analytical person. So they relate to JD beautifully, right? They're in the same rhythm. They sing the same song, right? And
yes.
Where I sing to people that might be creative, the chief marketing officer. And so when you understand the opposite, it's like all of a sudden now you get them, because it's more about them. So whatever your gift is, you're helping that other person. So I really love that how JD and I brought left brain and right brain together, even though we are also East Coast, West Coast. And it's not because I'm a California girl, guys. I just, I was born this way, creative. So JD absolutely, I believe is going to be a runner in the market. I see him doing huge, big things like I do you. He's got the big friends, right? Right? Birds of a feather flock together. And I'm sure he'll mention some of them, like Chris Brogan, and we all tease him that he looks like Seth Godin. So I'm going to go back to you, Mia.
Let's focus on JD to see if he's blushing, because I think he kind of is. It is very, very easy to shout you out, my friend. And Debra, thank you for that. What a great distinction about it being left brain, right brain, and not just getting attracted to the people that are so, in your circles or in the same thought process. So, JD, we're going to dive into you. Are you ready?
I am ready, but for the record, a couple things. I'm not East Coast. I'm from the heartland of the United States, the Midwest, Chicago, city of big shoulders.
Which I grew up. I'm gonna jump in. I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, and at
Yeah.
that point, there is such a chasm between Champaign and Chicago, so it is a big city feel. So I'm with you.
I'm lost on the East Coast. I don't have friends on the East Coast yet.
Well, that's because we're landlocked, except you do have
That's
that
right.
giant lake right there. So
Yeah. And I
that's
also do retain enough right brain creativity. I should say that sometimes I let my left brain and my right brain fight it out over who wins. So you cannot do work at a very high level in social media unless you have some right brain
well, that's where
straining in.
your improv comedy comes
Oh,
into play, right?
I'd like to think so.
I love it. All right, I'm gonna bust out a big sentence on you because I love this. So you're an adjunct professor of marketing communications at Illinois Institute of Technology. So obviously the Illinois thing, Stewart Graduate School of Business, and one of only a handful of practitioners in the world who are teaching social media marketing on the MBA level. I love that. I really have not heard of that. So share with us some of your experiences of what you do in the classroom and preparing college students for, so the real world, as we like to say.
Yeah, I mean, on a couple of different levels. I am now completing my 5th semester at the time of this taping, and I was handpicked by IIT, who, interestingly enough, did not retain me as a consultant and are winding up paying me more as an adjunct professor. So it's amazing how that kind of stuff comes around.
I'd say that's winning.
I love teaching students LinkedIn and social networking in general, and I take my role as an educator in the space very seriously. I don't network with many social media people. I really like to derive my own take on a lot of this in the way that it should be presented, especially with LinkedIn and how we socially network for business. But in the classroom, it's a different dynamic than, say, the boardroom. You're dealing with people who are really at the start, at the precipice of a career, and are looking to market themselves and gain any advantage to make themselves attractive to an employer. Completely different from, say, a consultant or a salesperson who is looking for clients, who is using LinkedIn to prospect, social selling, as we call it. So the psyche of the college student is different. These are digital natives, friends. These folks get it. The difference is that they're really not at the level where they can apply it yet, and they don't have what I like to call the skills of professional comportment. Some of them have had internships, some of them are learning the ins and outs of forming relationships, and they know, they have this feeling that the relationships they're going to make are what's going to propel them in their career. So they're listening attentively, they're doing some things incrementally, they're applying what they see in the classroom setting to the real world. They just don't have the real world experience just as yet.
And you can tell Deborah's dog is in complete agreement with you on that point.
Well, that's why they call it a Google Hangout. We're just hanging out. We're furry friends too.
That's right. I've got my couple cats over here, the dog. You're at home and your great environment. That's the way this rolls. So I'm gonna let Deborah pipe in on that, but I'm gonna segue real quick because I love what you're saying on that, because I love this question too. With that, talking about college students, can we talk about mentoring real quick as well? I want to jump in on that question, and then we can discuss this further as well.
Sure. Everybody is where they are at, I feel, in business because of the mentoring that they've received. And the mentoring that I received along the way comes from a primary source, and that would be my father.
Sure.
My father taught me the value of science. He was an inquisitive man. He was a man of science, a man of medicine, and looked for those answers deeply embedded within the naturally occurring phenomena, but he always asked questions, and he taught me to ask questions. And I really developed a fascination for social networking as a culmination of everything that I've been trained to do. I have a marketing communications background. You've mentioned some things along the way. I've been very creative in my own right. I've written stage plays. I've written short stories. I've done improvisational comedy, and I have a vast experience in broadcast journalism and investigative by nature. And when I saw LinkedIn, the day I discovered LinkedIn, I tell people I became a LinkedIn consultant, and it was my father, almost speaking from beyond the grave, who told me, "Examine this, son. This is you.
Wow.
This is everything that you've been trained to do." And my father was the greatest writer and speaker I ever saw. and just borrowing from him and feeling very lucky I was imbued with some of those gifts as well, that's what really drove me on. So it was almost mentoring, as I say, from beyond the grave, and just the environment in which I grew up. Mentors along the way in social networking, my mentors don't know that they're mentoring me. You mentioned a few. Seth Godin has mentored me from afar. I love the language that he uses in his writing and what he stands for, and how his depth and breadth of expertise goes well beyond just marketing and getting a message across. Chris Brogan, who I like to call a colleague and a friend, a guy that I've actually used his books as required reading for my students in my MBA Marketing Communications class. So I'm teaching social media on the level at which I learned it, and that is to ask questions, to be thoroughly investigative. And as college students prepare for the rigors of an entry-level career in marketing, they're going to need these skills. I mean, these are, you cannot hide from it. And if my students can make a contribution based on what they learn in my class, that's a warm and fuzzy feeling for me, because many of them are moving toward social media careers. I mean, companies are hiring for social media. I mean, they're paying kids $40,000 a year to monitor the Twitter feed and create a culture around a brand. This is where the elements of teaching come in. So anything that students can do and emerge to a prospective employer as helping create a culture around the brand, that's what makes them marketable.
I love it that you really are taking the mentoring. You know, it's why I brought that in, of saying initially what you were talking about with your students. I mean, this is mentoring at the highest level. It's called your teaching. But let's face it, I mean, you're just saying there's some that may not know that you have mentored them. I have a feeling the students are feeling the same thing, because you're taking this very organic experience as a child, turning it into school, and then looping in, real world life experience.
Right. Well, I'm also teaching them to use social media marketing to help themselves.
Yes.
Writing their LinkedIn profile is a class requirement.
I love it. I wish I kind of want to get out to Chicago and just be a fly on the wall at your class. So be warned, that might happen.
I'm there. You are welcome anytime. You could lecture to my class. Deb, you could lecture to my class.
Okay.
We could have a panel discussion.
It would be a laugh fest in a good way. It would be fun. I love it. Debra.
Well, first, I want to apologize for the barking big squirrel. We're in Hermosa Beach, and that actually was a squirrel that likes to come into the house.
Oh, that's
so
hilarious.
The door was open, and he was trying to come in. So Charlie was telling him no, he could not.
The Wookiee said no, huh?
The Whoopi said no. Yeah, the little Ewok, or some call
Ewok,
him
that's
here.
right.
In football season, people call him the furry football with feet.
I love it.
Anyway, I want to say, JD, thank you for sharing, because I every week and every month that goes by that since I've met JD, our friendship has just grown and grown and grown. And when you know where somebody came from as a child, it really does get you that understanding of, who we are, right? Because as he was speaking of his father, I thought, my father was a very, very successful entrepreneur too. And, it's in our DNA, it's part of who we are. And, we take those sometimes and we grow from them, and we don't even realize until we sit down and do our Who Am I? And my workshops, when I did at Loyola Marymount, that's the first thing that I did with them. As I said, your assignment is, before our class, is to do a Who Am I? We've done this before, Aristotle. Know thyself, be thyself, love thyself. And with that being said, JD really gets who he is, and that strength helps him help others. And that, again, when we stand up to our greatness, that's when we can really help other people.
That's a good point, and I think that's a byproduct of being comfortable in your own skin. I think we all have our inadequacies and our weaknesses. We try to shield them as best we can, and certainly we don't put them out there on LinkedIn. We try to exude trust, create a portrait of strength. But when you get to know people in an authentic way, which social media allows us to do, I mean, let's not deny the power of being authentic on these sites. You get to know people on a different level, a more visceral level. I talk about our ability to create parasocial relationships, and that is by noticing people online, the way they maneuver, the way that their LinkedIn presence drives their activity, their communication, their connectivity, their their activities on the site, and you get to feel like you know them. And I think that's probably how Deb felt when she saw me, and that's usually what prefaces me before an event. If I'm speaking at an event, my marketing collateral is out there. I walk in, people know who I am. I'm into meaningful conversations right away, and there's this comfort level, that familiarity has bred online, I think.
Okay, so here's another question. It's still on LinkedIn, and I agree with you 100% on that. So why should they be focused on, why should college students be focused on learning LinkedIn right now, to segue on what you were just saying?
Well, part of what I do in my classroom is try to shed the it's not Facebook mentality. I mean, it's
that's probably one of the most important things you could start with on that.
You know, you also have a developing brain here. I work with a lot of 20-somethings, and their brains are really not hardwired yet for the interactions demanded on LinkedIn. And I key them into that notion and let them know that it's time to start becoming serious about your professional career and start to care about how you represent on LinkedIn. Once you see the caring that goes into it, it's going to be easier for these folks to build the kind of relationships they want to build. So what I try to imbue, it's like anything else in my consulting, in my coaching, in my speaking, in my writing, my platform, is mindset training. And if they visualize the kinds of outcomes that they want, it's a lot easier to make it happen and move in that direction if they do what they need to do on LinkedIn, and that is farm the profile. Have a great LinkedIn profile. It doesn't have to be the most fertile right now. It can't be. They don't have the experience set. But they do want to embellish their skills, their present value, the internships that they've that they've come through, and their future value to a company. What is it that drives them professionally? How can they make the most enduring contribution to a corporation?
I like it that I think you're really taking these old school things, throwing it out the window, and you have gotten, you've moved into the new millennium, and you're figuring out, okay, let's drop the old way. And you have a question about, is the resume becoming extinct? To me, that's right online.
No, without a doubt.
I mean, you need to have one, obviously, but it sounds like you are providing a really great roadmap with recipes for success of here, follow this and this and this. But they also get to, like you were saying, like their burgeoning minds, they're growing, physically and mentally, and really helping them to kind of just set that roadmap and intention for who they want to be and create their own identity. Right. But you're giving them some great tools.
They're finding their way, and LinkedIn is, at this stage of the game for them, a chronicle of how they are finding their way. It could change, it could morph. Look, I know some 50-somethings and 60-somethings who are still trying to find their way, and the beauty of LinkedIn...
How about 40-somethings?
Okay, well, you know what? The beauty of the LinkedIn profile is that it paces with every reinvention we have of ourselves. We can deconstruct ourselves on a daily basis, and sometimes it only involves a sentence or two in our LinkedIn profile summary, but we keep reinventing ourselves, we keep advancing ourselves, we keep growing, we keep learning, and not to sound like a cliche, we keep being a better version of ourselves. It displaces the old, and that's the brilliance of LinkedIn, is in its flexibility and its elasticity. It can accommodate these changes.
I feel like, and I know Debra's dog again agrees, like, with everything you're saying, because you're pulling out it. Debra, I pretty much say everything that JD just said embodies why you wrote this book.
Right, and so I'm going to take 2 steps back and part of what JD shared. So back again with Facebook and back again with the Who Am I. So we've talked about this before. If you were a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout when you were younger, those character traits of integrity and trust, right? When you thread that through your Who Am I, and the people that view that, they get who you are. That's that authenticity and transparency that I'm speaking about, that I want them to come from. I want them to take those positive, beautiful character traits, and then you take that beautiful, they're innovators. That's why I know that there are game changers in the world. There are leaders, and that's why it's so important for me that we help blend our experiences to get them into that next level for themselves and building those relationships to get those positions. So back to Facebook, what I love about Facebook, and when I first started on LinkedIn, I was at this big, huge event, and the speaker said, how many of you in the room are in social media? I didn't raise my hand because I believed it to be a business platform. And there were 20 people in the room going, Debra, 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 Debra. But what I took from that later was I realized that, yes, it is social media. It is social business. So therefore, for me, that Facebook, they learned how to be social. And on the other side of it, some of these baby boomers, they don't have that social, right? And so the young people, the college students and the 20, 30 years olds, they get it. They know how to be social. So all they got to do is come in from social, but tweak it to the business of what is it about that other person's profession or industry, and how they could ask what JD said, better questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with Tony Robbins, the 3 things I took away 20 years ago was questions are the answer, intentions, and purpose. So when you put that combination with a college student, man, they're like a racehorse. They're way out in front.
It's jet fuel.
To add to Deb's point on that, and something that I impart to my students with great frequency, is that they shouldn't feel this sense of desperation after they get the diploma and start maneuvering their way around the job market, because companies are looking for them just as fervently as they are looking for the companies. Companies, the greatest challenge that a company has today, whether it's Fortune 500 or middle market or small, is attracting and retaining quality talent. It's an ongoing concern. The recruiting industry, competitive and cutthroat, yes, but everybody's trying to find the best people for the enterprise. And I encourage my students that they are being shopped as in reciprocity to shopping companies. So whereas they're trying to find companies or target companies that they'd like to work for, companies too are tapping the schools, they're tapping the talent pool, entry level, they're looking for strengths, they're looking for capabilities. They want to bring good people into the enterprise. And if students go out there with that kind of confidence, it's going to help them in the real world. They're going to live up to what they're saying about themselves in their LinkedIn profile. They're going to wind up networking better. They're going to exchange business cards with people, and they're eventually going to get the opportunity to pass their resume along to a decision maker.
And I'm going to segue into a question and kind of loop in. I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball just based on that, but I know you can handle it. So college students don't have much to offer yet in the way of professional experience. And with that, and you're saying it sounds like the shopping begins just like any kind of sporting, that they begin looking for really great potentials in high school and in college, not just right at that senior year. So when do you think people should start? I'm thinking ASAP. And how can they compensate for being so young, but really to get their LinkedIn profiles looking great?
Right, and LinkedIn is making this this move toward the young and saying that it's never too early. And but it begs the question, and I saw this question raised in a couple of my LinkedIn groups. Do you think high school students can be successful in their use of LinkedIn? That remains to be seen. I'll go back to, again, the neuroscience of the developing brain, and are they making the types of decisions that are necessary? Are they maneuvering, behaving on the site the ways that they will be recognized as professional? They kind of professionalism. But once they get into college and rational thought ideally has kicked in, and they start to know that they're going to be evaluated and judged on the basis of how they look on a site that has come to prominence as the de facto business site, really the first leg in advancing their careers, then the wisdom starts to kick in a little bit. They start to get it. They start to realize, okay, I shouldn't be postponing this until the day after I get my diploma. There are things now I can do. What are those things? Well, I tell my students that if they've had internships or are currently involved in an internship, that is a networking springboard. They should definitely make a good impression on their colleagues and coworkers, get those letters of recommendation, get those LinkedIn recommendations as well, get endorsed. Try to solicit praise from the people who have watched them work, who can recommend them to a prospective employer. And also bring in their colleagues. When the internship is over, you go back, you have breakfast or coffee or lunch with the person who brought you in for the internship and say, I'm very interested in developing a LinkedIn network. You're a well-connected person on LinkedIn. Is there any way that you can steer me in the right direction? Maybe connect me with a few people who might be supportive or who could mentor me further, those types of things. And when you approach it on that level as someone who has kind of gone beyond the realm of classroom student and now young professional, people are willing to reach out, they are willing to help, and they are willing to take LinkedIn to its limits in the kinds of network strength that we can build. So again, our fate in business today is dictated by our professional relationships. Never too early to start.
Who's going to turn that down as well
I'm
if
gonna
somebody
jump in on
came
that
to
one.
you and said, sure, if somebody came to you with that line, if that approach, JD, that's so brilliant, I would be so complimented and really want to just do anything I could to help someone if they came to me. So I love that. Debra?
So I think the concerns I have about that is that, and JD mentioned this, is the maturity level of it. On the other side of the fence, I mean, I have known young people in high school that already knew that they wanted to be, doctors and surgeons. And I mean, they were on a path. So when people are on a path, there's a different level, and you can call it maturity or focus, but they really know what their intentions are. So in that, I can see where there's a lot of opportunities, because I'll step on to the other side of the fence. My son, who went to ROTC while he was in high school, he knew that he wanted to be in the Air Force. So again, when there's a singular, real, strong focus, I could see where that could create a path. I want to say that I would like to see that coupled with a mentorship, though, because people being young, they're also vulnerable. So in college, they're already a little bit more, they've already, they're independent, etc. But in that high school, I would like to see them mentored. So for example, let's say a high school student wanted to be a veterinarian, and that's their love, is animals. So if they had a veterinarian mentor, then they have somebody that could actually coach and work with them, and they could be on the groups, and they could have conversations. So if that was their, I don't want to call it a hobby, because hobbies and loves can turn into professions, and that's the best ones that make us happy, right? Because we've talked about this. I like to see where people are in their culture. And again, back to college students, find your culture. Don't just think that, a Fortune 50 company is the right company. If you're like to, go to work at like Google in a pair of shorts and flip-flops, and you're more in that creative type of mode, and where you're going is in the financial world, and they're wearing business suits and ties, you have to be happy. You must know your culture before you choose it. So I like that. At any moment in life, we can change our direction. We're still who we are. We take us with us in our journey. So our education is only going to make you more who you are and better prepared to serve your gift and help other people. But back to the, I think a mentor, if the younger they are, that they have somebody that's actually helping them through that path on LinkedIn, so that it's actually, supporting them in a great way.
I like it. I like it. I've got a couple more questions, and I'm going to fast forward. So now, once they have the entry-level positions that got through, and I so agree, Debra. I mean, it's great to see when someone has that drive already in high school. So yes, LinkedIn could be great for that too, or is great for that. They've already started on their path, and then as they're going through college, they can flesh that out. So once a college or a student has an entry-level position, they're kind of up and out in the world. JD, what can they do as a new hire to advance their careers on LinkedIn? This would be some great advice too.
Well, there's the LinkedIn profile that gets you the job, and then there's the LinkedIn profile that helps you keep the job. So obviously the first
That's a great transitional point. I like it.
That's the first thing they do. Obviously that LinkedIn profile, which is basically it rides in your sidecar professionally. You change up the content, and now you are, and it depends on the position. At an entry-level position, and again, I'm in the marketing communications world, these folks, my students, are going for marketing jobs, but it would apply to finance, to IT, to engineering, to telecommunications, to sales, whatever. But in the entry-level scenario, once they get the job, they're focused on one thing and one thing only, and that is career advancement. So now the challenge becomes, how do you use that LinkedIn profile, this document, the most versatile and important document we have in business today, to advance your career? And that's where People now have to learn how to build fertile, opportunity-rich networks and start to learn the essence of collaboration. What does that look like? What does that involve? Collaboration is a word that we throw out there. Just we know kind of what it means, but what does it truly mean? Your collaborators, you're being involved in teams, in projects, in performing the capabilities, performing responsibilities to the utmost of your capabilities, that kind of thing. These are the kinds of things that get you noticed internally. These are the kinds of things that spread through a company like wildfire. And when positions are created and opportunities present themselves, this is where fortune truly does favor the prepared mind, as Louis Pasteur once said, because those students are in position to capitalize on these opportunities. And that's what I try to do as an educator, is give them the intuitive skills that once they get the position, they have to keep it. It's theirs to lose. And in a case like social media, where everything is tied now to what happens in a company, and companies make their decisions based on what they observe in the culture playing out on all the sites, and their ability to course correct on the fly, they need input from people in all departments to say, well, this works or this doesn't work. What should we change? What should we leave alone? And the more you can present these ideas and have a certain conviction about you and defend them, that's how you advance in a company. And obviously, if you're a strong client facer, if you're tasked with informing the public or interfacing with the public, as you will in social media, you will, you're on the front lines of generating brand loyalty. You will be recognized for those accomplishments, for bringing happy, focused, loyal consumers who evangelize the product or service or enterprise.
I follow with JD 100%. I think JD's got an excellent point, and he brings up collaborative and he brings up intuitive. And in collaborative, a lot of times what people forget when you're, you know, like I did a workshop called Master, Network Like a Master on and off LinkedIn. So when you're out in the public and you're networking at events, it could be a very high end and you're meeting high end people. What people forget is they can go collect, you know, cards, and what do cards actually mean? So, you know, I said to someone once, if you had 1,000 cards, how much would that be worth? Would you give me a penny? I'd give you nothing. So it's back to the relationship. And so with this collaborating and connecting, it's not just click, click, and connect and get a whole bunch of connections. It's building those relations. So what does collaborative mean to you? So the better the questions that you ask and your purpose and your intention before you go to an out event, right, and how you follow up, what JD's saying is they're going to bring this intellect onto LinkedIn too. So you're going to, you know, collaborate in a way that you're building those relationships with people.
Right.
So
yes,
that's critical. Thanks, JD.
Well, you also have to engender the self-confidence necessary to do those kinds of things on LinkedIn. And this is something I notice in the student population, is one of the things that tempers us as established professionals in our businesses is we've accrued a little self-confidence along the way, a little business bravado, if you will. I mean, we know the extents of our personalities. I think we know what we can and can't realistically do by this time. But at the same time, if we can't, we aspire to do it. We set goals. We move toward those goals. And I think that the young professional now is tasked with that once they get the position. They're going to get stuff heaped at them. I mean, there's a lot of manure to shovel to work your way up the corporate ladder, so to speak. But they do it. And the ones that continually accomplish with verve and flair what's handed to them are the ones that are going to get the recognition. And this is where it develops. I think they will come into a certain wisdom about developing relationships. They'll know who they have affinity for and who they should stay away from. I think that's the corporate environment as it always has been. But with social media, the beauty of it is they can actually see how the company has a presence out there beyond the ivory tower mentality. They can actually interface with people in real time who know about the product. They believe in the product. They're telling their friends about the product. So here's where the millennials can be such an incredible value to a regime that's kind of steeped in tradition and not really willing to take social media at its face value, because these folks, these social media people, are reporting to the C-suite. And in many cases, I think Deb might agree with this, the volume of content is just extraordinary on social networking. It's beyond the bandwidth of the CMO. So I think we're coming to a state where we're going to actually see the chief social media officer, the chief SMO, or the chief SO, the chief social officer. Some people are calling, well, some people are calling it a CXO, the chief experience officer, because now the goal is to create experiences around the brand. So once these folks go in knowing that that's what they are being hired to do, is find out the level of the experiences that people are having with the company, they can communicate more effectively, they will build those internal relationships, strengthen them over time, and ideally advance.
And I'm going to jump in. I'm calling these all Gershbeinisms. I'm going to listen
JD-isms?
JD-isms, I like either one. So with our last question, this is a great segue because we've been talking about corporate and so forth, but there's going to be college students that are in my boat and Debra's boat of being the entrepreneurs, and yours as well. So what about those that are aspiring to be entrepreneurs that are going to go into business for themselves or partner with others? I know that is really about collaboration, the ultra, but how can they make LinkedIn work for them?
Well, even at the high school level, we're starting to see entrepreneurial groups start to emerge. There, you have the young achievers, but you also have activities at schools, high schools, that encourage entrepreneurial flair. The entrepreneurialism just seems to rise out of some of these kids.
Right.
Think back if you ever participated in a junior high school science fair. The creativity that burst forth from these people, just incredible. How some of these kids developed the creativity that they needed, and I'm thinking that in terms of at the college level, you have entrepreneurial functions all set up at schools. You have people very well steeped in entrepreneurialism who are teaching the kids, who are having meetings, who are encouraging these skills to come out. Entrepreneurialism, very important. Many of my students do want to go into business for themselves. They want to own companies, many companies. They want to be that kind of versatile professional, and teaching them the skills, how to network a dream, how to network a goal, how to get the seed money, how to advance through the chain of the Shark Tank, so to speak, and meet the investors and cater to the shareholder interests, all a huge part of it.
And Debra, parting words on that.
Very nicely said, JD.
It is. She's steeping in it.
Yeah, the entrepreneurialism and the spirit. I think the spirit is really what, in essence, and a lot of these college students have that entrepreneur and that innovativeness. I'm known as a CNO, a Chief Networking Officer.
Right.
I see that they can network their social, right? And on the other side, I want to remind them a beautiful, beautiful intro into this gorgeous new career is the charity and the volunteer. Charity being, in the Bible, love. And I think when you have things that you love in charity, whether it's, helping, people that are homeless or pets or whatever that is, you will meet other very successful business owners.
Like-minded, right?
Like-minded, and they will be not just that hand up, but they will, that side by side. They get what you have, and to give is to get. And so there are mentors out there. So I want to remind them, it is beautiful on your profile to show these, what you did last summer as cleaning up the beach and working at an animal shelter and all those things. So remember, those things that you love could actually be the one thing that a person you meet will be the person that steps you into your next position that could be for 10, 20 years.
May I expand? That was incredibly insightful. And one of the things that I'm even encouraging my students, obviously they want the good job, the rung on the corporate ladder at a good company, but the burgeoning nonprofit industry, nonprofit in the last 10 years has been just astonishing, not only in the way that they grow, but in the way that they can develop talent for the commercial industry. Obviously, students are looking to pay back their student loans. They're not going to want to toil in anonymity for a company. They want to make their mark. But if they do believe in causes, and if they have been around the fundraising arm of a company, this can be very valuable because these are paid positions at a nonprofit. These are budgeted, salaried occupations. And paying your dues for a couple years in a nonprofit before advancing into the commercial world, huge opportunities, because another piece of the talent pool is that recruiters are looking for people who have frontline experience in dealing at the transactional level, at the finance level, at the budgeting and accounting level, and what better experience can you build as a social networker through nonprofit, because nonprofits are all over LinkedIn.
Yes, thank you, JD.
That is a perfect way to end that. I'm going to have to listen back through this again because there's so many good JD-isms in here. So thank you once again for joining us. It looks like the best way to reach you, my friend, is at JD Gershbein, and that is Twitter and across the board. Is that correct?
Well, that's my Twitter handle.
Yep.
I'm becoming a little more Twitter savvy these days. I'm so
go.
LinkedIn centered that I kind of neglect some of my other social marketing platforms.
Right, and we're going to get you on Google Plus, and you're not going to know what hit you.
I'm on Google Plus. I'm getting a little more well versed in that. But if I may, I'd like to just say one thing on an outgoing level, and that is the true power of LinkedIn. I did not know Debra Faris when she contacted me. It was out of the blue, dropped from the sky. I get people accessing me from all four corners of the earth, and I don't know what they want. It ranges from everything to meaningful collaboration to people who just want to pick my proverbial brain. And I've always had a brain that's I've always had a brain that is out there for the picking. So I encourage people to continue picking. But Deb's approach was, so warm, so sincere, and just so gratitude heavy. And she felt like she knew me. Parasocial relationships again, and I certainly had enough content out there for her to get to know me. But just the way she did it, she made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and we started. Really, every touch point in the early going was just designed to advance the dialogue. I connect with some LinkedIn people. I know who my colleagues are. I don't connect with all of them. There's all of a sudden everybody's a LinkedIn expert, and they're all coming out of the woodwork suddenly talking about the great secrets behind writing an effective LinkedIn profile. And by the way, if I see one more blog that tells me how to write a good LinkedIn profile, I just might hammer it. But Deb's approach was different. It was sincere. It was warm, and I think that's really the power of LinkedIn. Is it allowed her to create something with me that's resulted in projects like this, and she was also very complimentary, very flattering, but genuine. Deb is genuine, and if anything, LinkedIn gives us an outlet to bring out our genuineness.
This is the embodiment of what LinkedIn can be on a really great level. So, JD, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us a lot of your fun bon mots of wisdom. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Always nice to be in the same sentence as bon mot. Thank you, Mia, for being as delightful as you are. Debra, best of luck with the book, honey. It's going to be great, I'm sure.
And, I love you guys. You're amazing.
Yay. Thank you, darling. Of course, the book is called LinkedIn for College Students. And when is that coming out, Debra?
January.
Yay. All right, everyone. On behalf of Debra Faris and myself, thank you for joining us. Bye.
Love you all.
Bye.
Who, interestingly enough, did not retain me as a consultant and are winding up paying me more as an adjunct professor. So it's amazing how that kind of stuff comes around.
I'd say that's winning.
I love teaching students LinkedIn and social networking in general, and I take my role as an educator in the space very seriously. I don't network with many social media people. I really like to derive my own take on a lot of this in the way that it should be presented, especially with LinkedIn and how we socially network for business. But in the classroom, it's a different dynamic than, say, the boardroom. You're dealing with people who are really at the start, at the precipice of a career, and are looking to market themselves and gain any advantage to make themselves attractive to an employer. Completely different from, say, a consultant or a salesperson who is looking for clients, who is using LinkedIn to prospect, social selling, as we call it. So the psyche of the college student is different. These are digital natives, friends. These folks get it. The difference is that they're really not at the level where they can apply it yet, and they don't have what I like to call the skills of professional comportment. Some of them have had internships, some of them are learning the ins and outs of forming relationships, and they know, they have this feeling that the relationships they're going to make are what's going to propel them in their career.
That are so, in your circles or in the same thought process. So, JD, we're going to dive into you. Are you ready?
I am ready, but for the record, a couple things. I'm not East Coast. I'm from the heartland of the United States, the Midwest, Chicago, city of big shoulders.
Which I grew up. I'm gonna jump in. I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, and at that point, there is such a chasm between Champaign and Chicago, so it is a big city feel. So
I'm lost on the East Coast. I don't have friends on the East Coast yet.
Well, that's because we're landlocked. Except you do have that giant lake right there. So.
Yeah. And I also do retain enough right brain creativity. I should say that sometimes I let my left brain and my right brain fight it out over who wins. So you cannot do work at a very high level in social media unless you have some right brain.
Well, that's where your improv comedy comes into play, right?
I'd like to think so.
I love it. All right, I'm gonna bust out a big sentence on you because I love this. So you're an adjunct professor of marketing communications at Illinois Institute of Technology, so obviously the Illinois thing, Stewart Graduate School of Business, and one of only a handful of practitioners in the world who are teaching social media marketing on the MBA level. I love that. I really have not heard of that. So share with us some of your experiences of what you do in the classroom and preparing college students for, so the real world, as we like to say.
Yeah, I mean, on a couple of different levels. I am now completing my 5th semester at the time of this taping, and I was handpicked by IIT.
Is extraordinary, and this is a perfect example. And when they say things happen for a reason, JD came in my life like that, where you and I got introduced by a mutual friend. JD and I did not know each other. We are East Coast and West Coast. Now, for you on the other side of the screen, this would be your east or your left because you're seeing this opposite and vice versa. So East Coast, West Coast, and what I mean by that is he's a very left brain. I married what was called a left brain analytical anal retentive scientist. And I'm making a joke about that because if you know who Dr. John DeMartini is, the polarity in things are really, really critical. And so what people have a tendency of doing is they like to just zone right in to things that are familiar for them. And that's not how we learn and we grow and how we round ourselves out. So when you find people who are different than you, there's a lot to be learned, but that's that trilogy. And that's what JD and I bring, because his left brain science and neuroscience and his ability. So when he does profiles, he doesn't just dot the I's and cross the T's. He brings a whole new life to them, right? And that's why I brought JD. So we met literally when I found his profile. I was like, whoa, 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 who are you, right? And I mean, I fell in love with him. And this is what I tell college students and everybody that I work with, is that when you really see someone's profile and you can feel that aha or that wow or that something, that's your intuitive talking, and you need to reach out and connect to that person and whatever.
Social Media Power Chat and 15 Minutes with Christine and Mia right here on Google+. And I'm continuing this series with Debra Faris. She's an intuitive LinkedIn coach and a people connector, and she is on a mission with her upcoming book called LinkedIn for College Students. And what she's doing is bringing people to this Google+ stage who are innovative and successful people she's connected with on LinkedIn and having them share their stories with us. So today we have JD Gershbein. I said his name right. And he is amazing. I'll just give you some quick background. He has a background in marketing communications, sales, neuroscience, psychology, broadcast journalism, and my favorite part, improvisational comedy, which I think is a fabulous combination. So, Debra, I'm going to turn it over to you. You tell me, and it's such an obvious answer, why you have JD with us today to talk about this book.
Well, thank you, Mia. And by the way, can I say you look absolutely stunning, gorgeous, and you are the light today. If it's raining anywhere in the world, guys, Mia's your sunshine.
Yeah, you got me to blush. We've been making everybody else blush. Thank you, darling.
You are absolutely. And I want to thank you again, Mia, because what you're doing, what you're bringing to college students also is absolutely phenomenal. I think you're the cutting edge, and that's why I'm so excited to have you be part of this book with us.
Thank
So
you.
the reason why I brought JD was I wanted to have somebody who really was the heartbeat of LinkedIn. And for me, to share what really can work on LinkedIn, whatever that is that spoke to you, that's how you reach out to that other person. So that's what I did with JD, and we actually connected a year ago. So when I work with CEOs and CMOs and COOs, so a CFO is a chief financial officer. That's a left brain analytical person. So they relate to JD beautifully, right? They're in the same rhythm. They sing the same song, right? And
Yes.
where I sing to people that might be creative, the chief marketing officer. And so when you understand the opposite, it's like all of a sudden now you get them because it's more about them. So whatever your gift is, you're helping that other person. So I really love that how JD and I brought left brain and right brain together, even though we are also East Coast, West Coast. And it's not because I'm a California girl, guys. I just, I was born this way, creative. So JD absolutely, I believe is going to be a runner in the market. I see him doing huge, big things like I do you. He's got the big friends, right? Right? Birds of a feather flock together. And I'm sure he'll mention some of them like Chris Brogan and we all tease him that he looks like Seth Godin. So turn it over back to you, Mia.
Let's focus on JD to see if he's blushing because I think he kind of is. It is very, very easy to shout you out, my friend. And Debra, thank you for that. What a great distinction about it being left brain, right brain, and not just getting attracted to the people that are